Welcome back to Punjabi Pod, episode 15. Sat Shri Akal saariਆਂ ਨੂੰ.
Sat Shri Akal.
Sat Shri Akal.
We have my co-host Swar, Dr. Sandhu, and our continued cooperation with PCHS. Ronnie's here. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Awesome. So I had a bit of a break, but I'm back. I'm feeling much healthier.
Yeah, you were gone for a couple of episodes.
Just a couple episodes.
Yeah.
Who's sitting behind the camera?
He's there, yeah. We made sure he showed up, but we
was
do
the
it.
time.
We do it as host too. So I guess he has to show up.
I do feel that when you're on the shows that you do bring like a really positive dynamic.
Really?
Oh, there.
Yeah.
100%.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Positive energy.
Some
Now
positive comments.
when he doesn't
Yeah.
sleep off,
Yeah.
he's just
Yeah, one thing I do gotta say is every time I see Simi, I always smile. He always brings a smile to my face.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, so today we're going to do comments. We're going to go through some
Yeah,
comments
let's start with some comments. Okay, because
from the past videos, right?
so obviously, we've been doing this is new to us. This is gonna come in our field where people are gonna comment and people are gonna make comments towards, especially the things that we talk in English for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So you've noticed some comments, I've noticed some comments, and it's a part of the game. It's part of the game where you're gonna get feedback from everybody,
Which is good.
which
We
is
want
good.
feedback, right?
So it doesn't hurt us. We're not little babies. It doesn't affect us that we're gonna go cry all night because you commented something negative towards us. I actually enjoy it because it kind of proves my point a lot better for some
Yeah.
of these comments,
It does.
right? And so we're gonna get into those a little bit. So for the last comment that I saw, now context is a big thing, and a lot of context from people when they have to actually go and watch the full episode to understand where the reel is coming from or the TikTok is
Right.
coming from,
Right.
right? Because we break them up and we put those out to get people's attention, right? That's the whole game, right? Is getting people's attention and getting them to go to see the full episodes. So the last in the last reel that I had posted from the episode, where I said in Punjabi community, alcohol is a major thing, right? And now somebody goes and comments on, and this is the comment, so quotation mark, biggest thing in Punjabi community is alcohol, question mark. Podcast is great, but we can't be labeling our own and promote this false narrative. Okay?
So do you think it's a false narrative?
I mean, I find that really interesting because I just today was talking to patients about how alcohol is so normalized in our culture. Like I feel like in our community, alcohol is like water.
Yeah.
ਆਪਾਂ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪੀਂਦੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ any ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ and we say ਕਿ daily ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਪੀਂਦੇ ਆ, it's not considered a problem. That's a problem. The fact that we don't think it's a problem. You're doing something daily that is affecting your health in a negative way. How is that good?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's about and this I think stretches across even like relatives in India. Like here you may say, okay, well you can't function off of that much alcohol daily. In India, most people, if they're doing farming or whatever, then the lifestyle allows for a drink every night.
Yeah.
And so I just call them functional alcohol use disorder patients. They're functional alcoholics.
Yeah.
That's what they are. And so bigger drugs like heroin and cocaine, marine. So alcohol's okay until you're at death's doorstep and your liver's shot. And then it's all of a sudden not okay, right? So I think alcohol is very normalized in our community. And I think that the stigma around that is what the problem is. Like we need to destigmatize the use and allow people to talk about it and allow people to acknowledge that, it's a problem.
Yeah.
You don't just start drinking and then decide that it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're just not going to stop Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah, it is
You
a
can't
problem.
turn it on and off like that.
And the bigger issue I'm finding is the people that are acknowledging that or saying it's not a problem. Look at what's going to the next generation. Look at what we're giving our kids. We're giving them this sense of it's normal to have, I don't know, a liquor cabinet full and for your dad to sit down or uncle or whoever to sit down every night and have a couple drinks. That's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So ਉਹ ਕੰਮ ਤੋਂ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਰੋਟੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਪੀਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਰੋਟੀ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਚ ਪੀਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੇਂਦੇ ਕਿ this is how my dad copes with alcohol every night. Oh, maybe I'll do that when I'm 18. Of course it's a problem. I think it's a huge problem.
And is it because so from this comment, right? And they're saying that I'm trying to paint the narrative that Punjabi community and I understand this in all communities, but we're Punjabi. we're all Punjabi. The whole point of this episode, or the whole point of the show, is to talk about the stigmas that are in the Punjabi community, and that's why we're highlighting a lot of those.
Of course,
right?
because we want
So-
to bring those to the surface, to the light. We don't want people to feel ashamed and not want to talk about them.
Yeah.
I mean, we do work in mental health and substance use, and our whole goal is to allow people to be okay with not being okay because they're using or because they're struggling or because, I mean, the biggest thing with our community is everything's so hush hush.
Yeah.
Gal nahi karni, you know, and I feel like that's what part of the problem is. So sure, with this comment, we can say we're creating this narrative. Well, you know, the narrative's already there.
Yeah.
We're trying to address the narrative. We're trying to say, hey, here's this issue. We have people showing up with end-stage liver disease, hepatitis, all these sequelae of alcohol use or any substance use. So how can we get to the root before we're dealing with now a family that's fallen apart because of someone's alcohol use, and now we have a dying, I don't know, family member, right?
Right.
And then the family's dealing with the devastating effects of that person being dead.
Yeah.
And maybe he's the only, or that person's the only income. You know, there's just, look at the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's important to acknowledge that. I think we can't ignore it in our community. It's so prevalent.
No.
It's so prevalent these days, far more prevalent than it was even 40 years ago. But look at our parents. I don't think
100%.
it was as big of an issue when we were kids. I
No.
mean, we're going back 50 years now.
Yeah.
Literally 50 years, right? And you look at what we have today. So coping's changed. I would say ਸਾਡੀ community ਦਾ ਸਹਿਣਾ ਵੀ ਬਦਲੀ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਹੈ. Wouldn't you say?
I would even say even further more to that is just like just the culture. If you go to weddings or
Oh yeah.
parties, it's like ek hor peen nu ji kadda, ek hor glassi
It's in everything.
right?
It's, I mean, it's even in
or
our, it's even in our music.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was just thinking about songs like Jat Ho Gaya Sharabi.
Yeah,
right?
in the peg.
I guess mode te baduk pondi boliyan,
Yeah.
hamar de vich botalan kholiyan, right?
There you
It's
go.
like you have
I haven't even heard
these
of these
songs.
songs, yeah.
That was Surma or
Yeah.
for Jazzy B.
Oh.
It might have been Surma, might have been the other one. But anyways, I might be dating myself. But generally speaking, right? Like I find a lot of the songs, they're all about like daru, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's not one song that, you know, if you go to the vyas, no one song is saying, man, you know, I love this girl so much. Let's party and let's celebrate the love I have.
Yeah.
It's all more about how much punga I'm going to do, how many punga I'm going to get into when I'm drinking. It is a big part of our culture, right?
It
And I
is.
think
I
when we
agree.
talk about like normalizing it within our culture, the music is, the culture is, and you know, there is always this idea of like, I remember being a younger guy in university. A lot of the Punjabi guys used to take pride in the fact that we could outdrink most of the other cultures that we hung out with, right?
Yeah.
And I remember hanging out with people from different ethnicities and cultures. They'd be like, "You guys can drink," and
Yeah.
I had Irish guys come up to me and tell me this too, right? They're like, "Man, we thought we Irish people could drink, but you guys can really drink,"
Yeah.
and we would be like, "That's a badge of honor, baby." Like, you know what I mean? I just think that nowadays, like, you know, the idea of alcohol use or daru peeni, it's just like you go to any function, it's like alcohol is prevalent, right?
Yeah.
Everybody just wants to
Like
tie
imagine
one
having
on.
an alcohol-free wedding.
Yeah.
What would happen?
Yeah.
Nobody would go.
No, I don't think I've ever heard of a Punjabi wedding being alcohol free.
I went to one.
Did you go to one?
Yeah, I went
We
to
did
one.
not.
I thought you told me
My-
that you went to one actually.
Yeah, my best friend.
Here?
His,
Oh.
his reception was alcohol free.
Wow.
And Punjabi.
But here's the thing, though. People go out to their cars, go
They're just
get
drinking
wasted.
at other places.
Yeah,
They
they go
come
get their
there
own
drunk.
bottles.
They show up drunk.
They show up drunk. You know,
Or tipsy.
it's so because they know that like it's a party, and
I wonder if
a
it's a
reception.
social anxiety piece. Like I've
I
had
do-
some people say
I
to me
agree.
कि जब तक मैं शराब ना पीती, like I can't get comfortable.
Yeah,
Like मैं खोल के नहीं something. I don't know what that is.
I can't make abdi pras nahi kar sakta hai.
Yeah, so is it some proportion of it that's just associated with the partying, but also just bringing down some of that anxiety that people have? Because then they
I mean, it does help with anxiety when you're
Sure.
out partying, but
yeah.
I mean, coming home every night after work and drinking, that's not, what do you have anxiety for when
Right.
you're at
Yeah.
home?
I
think those are
find
the problems.
I find a lot of our community drinks because of sleep issues.
Yeah.
So body aches from physical labor and sleep. Those are the two big issues I find.
yeah.
Most of them are deficient in iron and B12, so they don't realize that their body aches could be due to other
Other
things.
things, yeah.
But they just migrate towards having something outside their body fix it.
Yeah.
Why not give yourself the B12 or the iron or whatever your body naturally produces and needs? No, it has to be an external substance. It has to be a goli or a drink or some heroin or it has to be something other than like there's no what's the thing like self kind of.
I think what you're thinking of is just like relaxation. I think
Yeah,
most guys
like-
can't relax when they come home, and they don't feel like they can
Like para te
drive-
para, ni ponte.
Yeah,
They don't want
right?
to put weight on their own selves to
Yeah.
make their bodies. You can do it yourself. You don't need to
It's,
rely.
it's so different. Sorry, from
Yeah,
like
no, but it's so
like,
different,
You go
like-
back to like the pind and like what our dads did probably way
Look
back
at
in the
what-
day,
yeah.
like the kheti badi and coming home and eating and getting up in the morning and just working hard.
Yeah.
And don't tell me that driving a truck or I mean, let's look at like the main jobs that Punjabis that are coming in, probably ones that you're seeing more in your clinic.
Sure,
are
driving,
doing, taxi
construction.
driving. Don't tell me
some
that that's more
construction,
difficult
yeah.
than getting up at 4 a.m. and walking behind two bald in the pelian and
Yeah.
buying it.
Well, that's what I
come on.
mean. So
Yeah.
that's what I feel like that generation, like Daddy's generation versus now.
It's a weak generation.
It's a weak. Something's. That's what I'm saying. The serna nahi hega. Like nikki gal te
They're so
apa.
weak.
Yeah.
I
There's no coping there.
You
could I,
disagree?
could I disagree
No,
with
you
that?
can't. No, you can't.
Okay. Well, I just
Cut
want to make
this
sure.
out.
So
I just wanted to make
So
sure
you
I could
disagree.
disagree, right?
Well, of
Okay.
course.
Go ahead, though.
The thing is,
Yeah.
I don't think we're weaker. I think just the type of labor we do creates, like, for example, if you're doing like if you're cutting patte, right? You're doing a physical labor. You're actually releasing energy with everything you're doing, right?
Sure.
I find in a lot of the work
That's a
we
good
do
point.
today,
Yeah.
we just kind of keep that energy on the inside, which causes aches and pains.
Well, sitting like
Sitting
for
all
8-9
day.
hours a day.
Right.
Yes.
And like one thing I gotta say is I haven't I went to an athletic therapist last year because I was having troubles with my hamstrings and my ankles. And one thing that he came up with, he told me I had weak glutes. And I'm like, how could I have weak glutes? I run all the time. I work out.
Oh, yeah.
And what he said was, he goes, you sit all day for work.
Yeah.
And then it got me thinking, my energy that where it should be used in my body is not being used effectively. So we end up having all this excess energy.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people come home from work, whether it's taxi driving or truck driving or, working wherever
Sitting
they're working.
jobs,
Sitting
yeah.
jobs or there's just most like knowledge type of labor type of work that a lot of people are doing, even accountants, lawyers, and whatnot within our community. A lot of them come home, they have all this excess energy built up. And I think one of the ways they deal with the excess energy to calm it down is having a few drinks to take the edge off. And because the number one thing of alcohol is it's an energy depleter,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that we're a weaker generation. I just think that we have a lot of energy that we don't know how to channel better. or
Well,
how-
and because we've now changed the scene, like we're not in India doing the Kheti Badi because everybody's coming here.
yes,
And then when they come here, you're not farming. Other thing that you're saying, which is a good point with what you're saying also is we're not releasing our dopamine. So when you do the patte and when you do the bald and you're out in the field, that exercise circulates that dopamine. And what does that? It gives us, what does dopamine do? It makes us feel good.
Feel
Why do we
100%.
exercise?
Yeah.
Why do runners get a high? Makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So these jobs when we're just sitting, so that's why you have to even harder than say like you need to carve out some time to go for a walk. Like I have some of my patients that drive trucks, they have to walk. I have one guy, it doesn't matter if it's 2:30 in the morning, he's gonna walk 5K, even if he walks around the truck yard. And he's gonna do his 5K before he gets to sleep.
That takes a great deal of commitment.
Of course, it's
Yes.
massive
Yeah.
because they're so focused on the job and the job doesn't have easy hours.
It's very
So-
tough hours.
Very tough hours. You know, you're just on call and at their beck and call. And so there's layers to it. I agree. I think that
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I just think that calling this generation weak and stuff, I don't think is really, from my perspective, a good
I think
way.
they're not pointed in the
They're being
right direction. Yeah.
mischaracterized.
I don't
Yeah.
think they're
Yeah.
think they're focusing on the right ways to cope.
Definitely.
And that's the problem.
And one more thing also is I know I know I've mentioned on this program a few times, like I'm a big fan of like Dr. Gabor Mate. And one thing that he did mention was the people who are involved in combat sports, like
Yeah.
boxing, martial arts, anything that involves contact with something else. He goes, their immune systems are generally stronger
Of course.
than the people who don't do like a sports that create some sort of release, right? Or some activity that creates a release. And I just think that one thing that could be implemented is when we are talking to the newer generation is how do we create opportunities for them to release energy?
How do we get them? Yeah.
Right. And I think, or release some of that stress. That's why I think there's been a major increase in stress levels. People are just mentally more stressed
Well, because
because
we're
of
not channeling
physically,
it.
yeah, because physically you're not releasing that
You're not
energy,
getting it
right?
out.
And I also think that that's what if you are able to get out some physical release, you're releasing that mental stress as
Of
well
course
too,
you are.
and it
So
also
true.
creates anxiety, creates depression because your body is just like, what do I
Your
do with
body doesn't know
energy?
what to do with
and you're
it.
just suppressing
Yeah,
it, suppressing
yeah.
it, suppressing it, and all your energy is causing fatigue. Is you're creating so much fatigue because you're spending so much time just suppressing the energy, and also makes you tired. So, but you have energy, but you're tired, so that's what causes sleep disturbances, and that's one of the reasons I think people would want to drink more.
And that's why we prescribe antidepressants, which increase your dopamine and serotonin levels,
Yeah.
which you can do in other ways.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure we
So-
only got through
That's
one
crazy.
comment.
So that's good because I love that. I love the fact that we elaborated so much on this one comment. And here's the thing. We didn't paint the narrative on Punjabi community being alcoholics. Like we
They
understand.
themselves created that.
That
That
narrative has been
narrative
created for
has been
years.
It's been there for a long
In
time.
everything from your diet, from your music, from your lifestyle, it's already there. We just highlighted it, and we're just putting it out there for people to talk about because then you get answers like these where they can tell you this is the problem and this is how you can fix it, right? And that's exactly
And
what
that
you
it's
guys.
okay
So
to
you just
fix
proved
your
my
problem.
point.
Yeah.
You just and
But
you guys
thanks
just
for
did this.
commenting, though.
Yeah. So thanks
But
for
if-
commenting because
Well, we
thank you,
I
right?
think it's important to talk about it because it's a real issue.
But here's the thing: we elaborated so much on the fact that the problem is there, the solutions are there, right? And that's why we're highlighting, and that's why this show is there, so
Right.
we can highlight these things.
Sure.
Okay.
I also think it also gives us a deeper understanding of the problem as well too.
Yeah, of
Like I
course
think
it
it's great.
does.
That was a really good deep dive. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that.
It was
Okay.
good, yeah, because
Yeah.
look at we managed to connect so much in that,
Yeah.
including treatment for mental health issues, which
Yeah.
are very closely connected to substance use.
And one thing I do
Substance
want to
use, think, is a
mention,
mental health issue.
Sure.
and one thing I do want to mention is that we're not just sitting here because we want to sit here. We have professional, a doctor and somebody that works in the field that's a social worker that deals with these things every day. You guys see these patients. You guys work with these kind of patients, and so we're not talking out of our asses. We're talking from an actual professional opinion that's
Now,
given, right?
You know what? I just
So-
wanted to mention. You mentioned something about PCHS and wanting to.
Yeah, and I also want to mention that the PCHS services, they are 100% free. I noticed that there may be a little bit of reluctance within the community to come out and access the services that we offer. And the one thing that's really come to my attention lately is a lot of people think that we get paid to come out to home visits or have people come to visit us in a location that we mutually agree on. I want to let the community know, especially here in Manitoba, that anytime you call PCHS, it's 125% free.
Perfect.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Okay, we'll go on a break here quick and
Sure,
then
come back.
go to the second comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to the second comment here.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's a two-part comment because it happened a couple times now. So we're gonna talk about it because one of them Ronnie brought up earlier. But we're named the Punjab Pod, and there's no Punjabi in there. Okay, so that's one comment. And the second comment that I wanted to mention because Ronnie, I think it was one of your videos. LOL, this guy speaking Punjabi is straight jokes. Most coconut Punjabi ever.
Well,
Okay.
I will wholeheartedly say I am very Punjabi, so I disagree with those
I
comments.
think we're all a little coconut. We were born here.
We were born here, right?
grew up
Yeah.
here.
There's
So-
a balance of cultures, but I mean, I feel so trying to reach. We're on a platform where we're trying to reach a larger audience, right? So, sort of going between the two languages is important because we have to try to reach Sadi Punjabi Janta, but also the youth, some of which don't speak Punjabi, don't know Punjabi, right? So, and that's really not on us, which households are trying to translate the language and which ones aren't. But aapa koshish kar rahe hain to reach as many people as possible. So we'll go between the languages, but I feel
if we were
like
to speak fluent Punjabi on this show, it would take out like all the youth because none of them speak Punjabi anymore.
फिर ਆਪਾਂ सिर्फ उस
The
जनता तक
Buzurg,
पहुंचा
we
गए
talk to the
है ना
50 plus year olds.
या बट साडी ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੌਪਿਕਸ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਯੰਗਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਜਨਤਾ ਸਟਰਗਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਆ 25 26 ਸਾਲ 16 ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਫਿਰ ਇਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੈਪਚਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਫਿਰ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ
Yeah, there's no point then because
so there's no value in that so
But I think at some point we were doing more Punjabi.
we were
and
doing
then
more
we,
Punjabi in the
then
beginning
we
yeah.
changed it.
Well, we got a lot of feedback saying that we should just do it in English and because our points get across a lot more smoother.
Yeah.
But you know, Ronnie felt
No,
the most out of this.
I'll say I was.
So let's talk about it.
I had a little bit hurt feelings. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay to. I guess we could just saying based on my Punjabi speaking skills.
Yeah.
And saying that this person is a coconut, I thought was kind of interesting for the fact that I love our culture. I love everything about being Punjabi. I think, and also like, that's not withstanding and understanding the person's like childhood, how they grew up.
Sure.
It was me and one other brown person that went to elementary school together.
Yeah.
Me and one other brown person that went to junior high, and me and the same brown person went to high school together. Beyond that, like all my friends were either Ukrainian, Portuguese, Filipino, indigenous.
Yeah.
It's not like I could communicate with them in Punjabi every day.
Sure.
Right? If I'm speaking Punjabi to them, I'll be ostracized. So it was more of a matter of like survival and I guess you could use the word assimilating.
Yeah.
One thing though that I can say is, as I've gotten older and understanding Punjabi and understand the culture and being more associated and being more ingrained and pulled back to the community, I love speaking Punjabi.
Yeah.
Meri Punjabi, it might not be the best. It might have a heavy Ingreji accent to it, and I'm okay admitting that.
Yeah.
But at least you're speaking it.
I am trying, and it's also about just trying to. And I think comments like that come sometimes, kind of dissuade other people within the community that really want to
Try.
reinvest in the culture,
Yeah.
reinvest in the language, right? So I think if you are truly a true Punjabi, you want to encourage the person to say, speak more, as opposed to saying your Punjabi sucks.
But
shut up and
apne
be
loki
English.
love to put people.
But we
No,
were
you know
just
what I
talking
mean?
about
Apne loki
how
number
Right?
one
Yeah.
to if somebody's down,
Yeah.
just
Kick 'em.
lat
They
them
just-
out and
yeah.
move on.
They'll never look at their own problems, but
No.
it's easy to pick
it's
out.
always
the other.
about finger pointing and looking at ਕਿ some ਹੋਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਚ ਨੁਕਸ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੱਢਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਚੋਂ ਨੁਕਸ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੱਢਣ ਦੇ like ਸ਼ੇਰ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੂਰੇ proper ਆ you know. And I find that that's another issue is because we were talking about this earlier, not taking responsibility for something that you're saying or doing, and always looking outside yourself to blame others or to find it in somebody else to get it off of you, you know.
The ownership piece, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think most people do not want to be accountable for their own behavior.
Yeah.
It's better if I blame somebody else. Like it's like me blaming Simi for me getting in a car accident earlier today.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I didn't get in a car accident. Does anybody know? But like, it's like I am not taking responsibility for it. I think as Punjabi Lok, I think one thing that I've observed in working with a lot of Punjabis, especially in the PCHS side, is that there is a lack of accountability. There is no, I'm taking responsibility for my own behavior. I'm not taking responsibility for my thoughts. This thought came from that person or that person. It's almost like crying, having this like victimized mentality.
Yeah,
you know?
the other piece of that victim mentality, I mean, now we're just sort of branching out
up in different
general topics. But
Yeah.
one thing I find is a lot of justification. Like I find most of the substance use in our community is typically men. And I find the women, the role of the women is chal koi na, chal koi na. It's very justified. And in that chal koi na is this sense of like, oh, well, the guy's like, well, I'm off the leash. मैं तो कुछ कीता नहीं, है ना? मैं पीती या मैं जो भी आ, whatever we say कि उन्होंने गलत कीता आ, the women typically are के justifying it. कि चल कोई ना, it's okay, next time आप आए. And in that is their उस चल कोई ना दे विच उस इंसान नू feel हुंदा कि चल मैं तो फिर कर सकदा, है ना? That I think is another piece of it. We take that ownership away from them. We don't give them the responsibility because other people in the house keep taking it on.
Definitely.
You know?
And yeah, just going back, I'll go back to the Punjabi piece. I think what you're talking about lots is patriarchy. I think that would be a great episode just to talk about patriarchy in itself.
I do want to mention, because I'm glad you brought that point up, because there was a comment on our on one of our TikTok videos, okay, and it was by the lady. It's by a Punjabi lady. She said, "My husband is an addict. I've done everything, literally lost myself trying to help him. I begged his family to help me, send him to a center for help. But instead of being there for me, they hate me because of my reaction."
Because she called him out on his stuff.
And she went and she commented
yeah.
pretty much a lot. There's a lot of comments on there about her story.
Because she went against the norm,
again,
and the norm
yeah.
is the family saying it's okay for him to use. And so she, being so affected by it because she's his spouse, spoke up against it. And then now she's the bad guy.
As she should have.
And one thing I've noticed though is I mentioned this to you guys upstairs earlier. I've noticed in our community, very rarely men who want to work through challenges, whether it's mental health or relationship challenges or physical challenges, very rarely do they ever call. What I find is
Sure, yeah.
right. What I find both in my independent practice and in PCHS, if there is an issue happening in the home, it's normally the wife, the grandmother, the sister,
Yeah.
the girlfriend, the cousin who is a female cousin. It always calls first for her male relative. And I really find that fascinating because other communities, males who are having challenges or working through stuff, they will call me themselves directly. It's only our community. At
Yeah.
first, I would not take those calls in my independent practice. After a while, I really started understanding within our Sabhyachar or our culture that for some reason, the men send their woman to find out the service for them.
Well, they don't even send it. They just
They
the woman
don't
actually is the
initiate-
one
And you
doing
know
all
what's,
the
you know
work.
what's
Initiates the
interesting?
process,
So
yeah.
that's really interesting that you say that. So in my private practice, like in my community practice, I have them either, I don't know now, I don't know who's calling because that's a good point. Maybe the wife's calling and making the appointment. But I have a lot of these guys just walking in. That's how much traffic we have in that part of the city. They're just walking in on their own, asking for help, which is really interesting because
incredible.
I wonder if there's a woman sitting outside in the parking lot saying, "I'm watching you, go." Right?
Yeah.
But because they're so frustrated and so done with their
Interesting.
lives. But it is really interesting because I find these are random people. They're not coming from a family physician. They're just booking their own. And the problem became that they were booking these appointments and then they were double booking them for 15 minutes. And you can't do that. And so I had to change the nature of how we booked them because, I actually have to say to my staff now, like any young Punjabi male that calls this clinic, you need to ask them why they want to see me if they're asking for me. Because 99% chances they want help with their addiction. Why else would they be calling just to see me, right? Because that's what I do. And so I find that as the word gets out and maybe platforms like this help bring that stigma down so that people can reach out. But I do wonder how many women are behind those appointments. Yeah.
I do find interesting. I'm just really interested to talk about patriarchy. That's
Well,
always
it's a huge
been
part of our culture. right?
definitely
Like,
right? And I wonder about that sometimes, right? Because I always have conversations about patriarchy and how patriarchy is so linked to like colonialism, right? And I'm always like, I know I might be on the colonialism train, and some of my friends might be getting annoyed when I keep talking about colonialism.
We'll give you a whole
Right.
episode on colonialism.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
right.
think so.
Patriarchy.
Well,
Right.
colonial episode.
Well, one thing I'm always kind of interested in is how many of these values that we have were intrinsically our own. How many of them have been created as a result of contact? So we say we live in a patriarchal society. Yes, we do currently. Was it this way all the time historically? That is something that I'm not too sure because there's never really been a solid history book. If anybody in the comments knows of a good Punjabi history book, I'm desperately looking for one that could really have the whole history of the Punjabi people, how we got our name, how we got apni boli ke mein aiya. I'm really interested in this.
So
Yeah.
interesting.
That's one thing that I think we
That
have,
is interesting.
historically speaking, right? I went on Wikipedia one day. They said there's 88 million Punjabis worldwide, right? That's including Pakistani and Hindustani Punjabis, then mixed in with like the people who moved to Australia, Canada, United States, and other aspects of the world, other areas of the world. I'm just interested in learning more about who we are as people, where our language originated from, how do we even create our language. That's the part of being Punjabi that absolutely fascinates me.
Fascinates you, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see like how the contact with white people has changed us, or our contact with like Persians and other Hindustani groups, how that molded us as people.
Those people, yeah. Well, it's interesting. I even wonder, like, how did the back in the day, like, I don't know, the 50s, 60s, how was that from a patriarchal perspective versus now, right? Like now I feel like it's really prevalent. So yeah, it's a good point. We'll give you an episode.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So coming back to that comment, because we did a little segment earlier in one of the episodes where we talked about coconuts versus Pindu, right? And there's obviously a clash, and the plain dudes are always attacking the coconuts, and the coconuts are always making fun of the plain dudes or the fobs or whatever, right? And I've done it where I've called somebody a fob, like it, and I'll own up to that, right? But when comments like these, where they're talking about like, you know, you're Punjabi, I find that like you try, like you'd give your effort and in speaking as much proper Punjabi as possible. And that's where that habit comes from, right? Is you're building yourself to be able to speak Punjabi, your language, and learn it and learn the history behind it and put in that effort. But you don't see that in cultures that are like, you know, you don't see that in your own culture where they've already done that for themselves. They just think that they know it now and then that's it. They don't really have to work on it. Some people can just speak it, but they can't read it or write it, right? Yeah. I grew up and my brother and I, we were the only two Punjabi kids in the whole school. Everybody else was white. I grew up around white and black people. That's
I think it's interesting, right? Because we talked about like Roni's household. There just weren't a lot of like, we grew up same time.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, we had 6 only Punjabi speaking people in our home.
Yeah.
Right. 5. All they could speak was Punjabi. So even when I asked my parents, they're like, the first 5 years of life, you didn't speak any English.
Yeah.
When you went into kindergarten, can you imagine? Like my daughter not speaking any English until she went into grade into kindergarten. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because English is her primary language.
That's what it was for me as well too. I didn't speak any English until I got to elementary school. And what happened in elementary school was I've had a bit of a stutter my entire life. And one thing that the ESL teacher, I think, erroneously recommended to my parents was that they stop speaking Punjabi in the household. And one thing that lucky for me, my mom, she was raised in England. So she was fully fluent in English, so it gave her the green light to speak as much English to us as possible, right? So I lost a lot of Punjabi,
you may have lost some of it,
and I think that I was misdiagnosed at the time. Rather than concentrating so much on the stutter, it would have been better if they said, this kid might be just experiencing a lot of anxiety trying to manage 2 languages. Right? That's what it actually was. And now I think back to it, I just think that again is a product of whiteness. It's saying, stop speaking your own language, speak this language, and it'll be better. And rather than finding a way I could balance both languages. And that's what I want to promote for a lot of kids coming up these days. I think it's enriching to speak as many boliyan as possible.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Right? Jinne jadiyan boliyan tusi bol sakte hain, the more enriching your life is.
Like it's good for your brain.
And you understand other people. And that's why in the things I did, even when I worked for indigenous agencies, I learned to speak a little bit of Cree and a little bit of Ojibwe as well too.
Yeah, wow.
I thought that was really interesting to really speak some of the languages which are actually indigenous to this land.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that when you are able to speak the language of the land, you are more deeply connected to the land.
That's
Which makes sense. I think everybody has their own, like, I feel like I could err on the side of Pendu, but that's just me personally.
I don't even take it as an insult if somebody says that.
Yeah.
No, I think we've done, me personally, I think based on our family and how our parents were immigrants, I feel like as first generation Punjabis, we've done a stellar job in trying to maintain our culture, speak the language, be willing and open to speak the language, and now try to pass that over to our next generation as much as we possibly can, right? And that is not just the language, it's the culture itself, right? So I think that's really important.
I find that like a lot of people get confused between culture and religion.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then those clash, and then they try to, you know, when it comes to alcoholism, right? We're not talking about alcoholism in the religion, we're talking about it in the culture.
Yeah.
But then people get that mixed up.
Get those mixed up.
And then clash them, and then that's where
Well, I mean, if you look at Sikhi as a religion, I mean, that's, again, this is just a can of worms, but like, जो साडे गुरुआं ने क्या आया, जो साडी सिक्खी विच सिखाया जांदा है, ਉਹ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਕ ਅਪਲਾਈ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਲਚਰ ਚ? I would say less than 5%, 5%.
Yeah.
Right, we're not really following those core principles. But again, it's more of a cultural thing these days, right?
Yeah.
So
I do agree.
Yeah, good.
Awesome.
Okay. So I think we're gonna finish the episodes there because I think we addressed some of the main comments, and I know we want to dive into something different for the next episode, so we'll end it here.
Yeah. And one more thing.
Yeah.
I know it was mentioned in the last video, but PCHS services are free.
Yeah, PCHS services are free, guys. So.
Yeah, so access them for family members, for yourself, right? Yeah.
Most definitely,
Yeah. So that was a little bit of a touch up on our, you know, a review of comments that we've been getting, some responses. we've been getting some great responses as well. So make sure you guys keep subscribing, liking, and sharing the video.
And commenting.
And
And
commenting.
yeah.
Keep commenting. We love it. You know, it gives us a chance to just reflect on everything and learn as well. So that's great. We have no problem. It doesn't hurt our feelings. We got Simi here. He's a big guy, so we'll take care of it. It's okay. But you know, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Really, it helps us out, and give us a shout on DMs if you have anything. PCHS services are free, so reach out to Ronnie if you or your family needs help in any sort of way, and give us a shout if you can't contact up directly. So we'll help you guys along. Other than that, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Do you guys have anything you want to add?
It's good.
Good.
See you next week.
Everybody's good. So
Yeah.
everybody, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.